There's been some heavy criticism towards Zelensky, to the point where certain, I would say, more independent podcasters / Twitter people who refer to, I can think of one.
Michael Tracy. Yeah.
Maybe I wasn't thinking of him.
We've had him on our podcast. He's going to come back. He said he'd come back. Talk to me about it.
But they've referred to him as evil.
That's wrong. I think that's wrong.
I thought that was wrong.
I think that's no. I mean, I disagree with these people like vehemently. It drives me kind of crazy, to be honest. Is that, you know, if there are war crimes on every side, right? Always. There's not a conflict in history where this isn't true. And, you know, Americans came into a concentration camp in 1945 and machine gunned the guards. I think it's the right thing to do, but they shouldn't have been, you know, they need due process, right? We need to apply this fairly. So you see Ukrainians, I don't know if this has been verified, committing some war crimes. Pretty brutal stuff, shooting people in the knees. And it's on all these Twitter feeds, all these people. That's when I get a little uneasy. You're not, you know, posting images from Bucha. You're just not doing it. Why are you doing this from one side? I mean, it's very important to denounce all this stuff, right? I mean, it's bad.
It's back to the culture war, right?
Yes.
Because if you support Ukraine, you're supporting the latest thing.
Mm-hmm.
It means you were pro-vaccines. It means you're pro-abortion. You know, and if you're against the current thing, it means you are, you know, but I think this is a US thing.
Yeah.
It's a culture war thing. I have not really seen much in the UK where people are defending Russia or blaming the West. I've not seen that, but I've seen a lot of it here.
Yeah.
And it was like, shit, we have to pick a side again.
Well, the interesting thing is that I interviewed Stephen F. Cohen, who passed away last year before the war started, and John Mersheimer together. The two kind of doyens of anti-war, realist foreign policy. And they were making these, it was incredible to see. And like they were defending the arrest of Pussy Riot. They'd gone so far, or particularly I think Stephen was, of, you know, defending the actions of the regime, which is like, okay, now you're transgressing that line. I mean, that was the Noam Chomsky thing that always bothered me. You can hate American foreign policy, but when you start defending the other guys who are probably worse, just because you're so obsessed and kind of wrapped up in your hatred of American foreign policy, that's what gets to that point. I think what's interesting now is that it's not ideological in the sense that it used to be. The Cold War, it was the far left, where Stephen Cohen lived in the far left. And by the way, just in fairness, Stephen Cohen was a very, very good historian of Stalinism, but he was also a little too pro-Soviet for my taste. But he was a good historian. I mean, give him credit for that. But he was a guy on the left. You know, the Nation magazine in America took a very particular line in the Soviet Union. And, you know, it's got better over the years, but they did, right? And then it was the right that was the Cold War years. Now, it's kind of the anti-war right. It's, you know, I mean, I don't know where I'd put somebody like Scott Horton, and I wouldn't say that he's pro-Russia at all. And I don't get that from him at all.
Oh, well, you think he's just an anti-war libertarian.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, that's a kind of confusing if he's a right or the left. I mean, he's just somebody who has principles and sticks to them. And, you know, I admire that. But there's others, I think, that are basing their reaction to this series of foreign policy decisions on their domestic political agenda.
Of course.
Which is very troubling.
If Trump had been reelected, and Trump was making the same decisions as Biden,
I think we'd be having a different conversation. Yeah, very different conversation.
But those, if they're, it's one of these things I've talked about a bit recently, is like, there's this massive criticism of mainstream media.
Yeah.
I've received personal attacks with people saying you just follow the mainstream narrative, and there's some people who are contrarian to every mainstream narrative as a point of principle. But if you do that, you're going to be wrong on certain issues.
Yeah, you're a fucking idiot.
You're a fucking idiot.
You really are.
But we have had this growth of independent people who are kind of interesting, and
sure, for sure.
But we also have the same problem. There's audience capture. Someone I've been very critical of is Tim Pool, who historically was, I thought, an interesting guy when he used to make his videos, Chernobyl and
Occupy.
It was kind of interesting. He was like, he said he was a liberal, but I kind of had him down the middle. He's just been completely captured.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, it's cartoonish. It's clownish. Yeah. I mean, I think I probably always had a negative view of him from stories that I heard from him back in the day.
Well, I didn't know, but I liked his videos.
Yeah.
His YouTube at one point was him making micro documentaries that were interesting, and then it became daily videos of commentary, and then he just was captured by the right. And by the way,
I've seen this happen to a lot of people recently.
It happens a lot, and that's not me being pejorative about the right.
Sure.
I think right have valid points or things I agree with and disagree with left and right, but he has been fully captured to the point where he has a single stream of thinking, which doesn't seem to have any balance at all.
Yeah, I never understood this. I mean, think about it for a second. Why would it be that you have the same opinion as everybody else, or you're a Republican or something, that you would have an opinion on war, guns, and abortion? Why would they all be the same? It doesn't make any sense to me. There's no ideological uniformity to those things.
There's two reasons.
Some are motivated by religion, some by broader ideology, but there is not a lot of sense to me that people on particular sides all have the same set of beliefs. It's always surprising to me that there's not more deviation.
Well, I think in their mind, I think it depends on the individual. I think in their minds of some people there is deviation.
Yeah.
But depending on their social standing, they can't deviate.
Yeah, for sure.
Like Ted Cruz cannot in any way say, hey, maybe we should have a chat about the Second Amendment. He can't do it.
Yeah.
So there's at that level. But then there's people who maybe have just got a small social standing, but they can't step out of their echo chamber because they'll be banished by the.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's a lot of money to be made in this too, right?
Yeah.
That's
the other incentive. Yeah. But there is also the, I bring it up on the show all the time because I encourage everyone to read Jonathan Haidt's The Righteous Mind.
It's a fantastic book.
Unbelievable.
Jonathan is one of the smartest people out there too.
And that gives you a better, I think what that book does is gives you a reason to go, okay, you disagree with me, but I understand there's reasons why you disagree with me, and let's have a conversation about that.
It's kind of heartening that book was so influential to so many people, right?
But not influential to enough people.
Not to enough people. I mean, that's every book I've ever found influential. Like, I need more people to read this, and they don't. But Jonathan is right about that. I mean, we started this conversation about polarization, and I am somebody who believes that it's not a problem that can be solved. It's a fool's errand trying to correct this, because the corrections for this are always mildly authoritarian, right? I mean, so when you have these conversations, Tucker Carlson is responsible for the Buffalo shooting. This is what people are saying. I don't believe this at all.
Why are they saying that though?
Because the racist kid that shot these people was toying with the idea of replacement theory, which has a number of kind of iterations. I mean, the most banal one is people saying that the demographics of a country change and therefore the voting patterns change. But, as I was talking about Hispanic people, that's not entirely true. But people have those conversations. But the other one is that, the white race is being replaced, that kind of the racist version of that. That was where he lived, right? And he was on 4chan and some weird subreddits and never mentioned Tucker Carlson in his manifesto, which was plagiarized from the Christchurch shooter. So it's that kind of universe, right? And people decided to take this horrible tragedy and make some political points out of it. They hate Tucker Carlson, accused him of being a Kremlin stooge, et cetera. And my question and response was, well, what do you plan on doing about this? So he says these things that might have, was the spark plug for this kid's murderous rampages. I mean, this kid who had, murdered cats and put them in bags and just a disturbed child. What do you do? Well, we need to regulate speech is usually the response, right? I mean, there's nothing else you can do. It is regulation of speech. It is not, we need more free speech to counter this. It is always a regulatory response. So when people want to fight the culture war and change these kind of little perverted incentives that come from bad actors or whatever, I don't want them to disappear because they're always going to exist. And a lot of people in the past have tried to make them disappear. And I can give you the names of countries and the time periods in which this happened, and it did not end well. Speech code, I think it's people overstate the problem in the UK, but I do find it very scary that a police officer can show up your door because of a tweet. That's not a good thing. Is it happening on a mass scale? No, it's not. But it happens enough that it's I think unsettling.